Great to get back on to the finance topic. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again to all the FIRE team and organizers for putting on such a wonderful 3-day conference here. So much energy, so much leadership, and excitement about the future. And of course, that involves funding. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes, VCs Driving Innovations. And as we've had a chance to learn from our panel here, we'll get a chance to hear about some of the historical perspective, kind of where the VC market's been, where we're at today, and why today is a great time to be investing and a great time to be bringing in the right capital partners for your opportunity. So we have some entrepreneurs in the audience, we have some LPs, investors, and so excited to think about where we are in the state of the market and get to know some of their investment theses. And we're very fortunate to have Quinn and Bill. They've been around the block for a couple decades and doing investing, both on the CVC side and the venture side, and seen a lot of cycles up, down, sideways. And Jenn's on her third fund now, been very successful with her partnership, and excited to learn more about kind of where we are with the VC market. And obviously the venture capital relationship has evolved over the last couple decades, and certainly with the overall financial markets. And so we're in the land of unicorns here, and seeing those companies continue to search for their liquidity events and search for the financials to back up their valuations. So there has been a bit of an overhang, but still so many different areas of opportunity across the technology spectrum to invest, and glad to dive into it here. So we'll jump into the panel and have folks introduce themselves a little bit further, talk about themselves, their background, a little bit on their particular outlook and thesis for investment today, and we'll have everybody jump into a couple of the key areas that they see as very compelling, and tell us a little bit about why they think those investment opportunities are going to be the next big win. So, Jenn, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Well, thank you. Thanks, Mark, and everyone here. Future in Review, my first time attending and speaking, so been an inspiring day and a half, so learned a lot, so thank you. So I'm Jennifer Byrne. I'm general partner at Grit Capital Partners. We're an early stage, primarily seed fund focused on investing in applied AI within fintech, media, martech, and commerce. Martech meaning marketing technology. I have an unconventional path to getting to becoming a full-time VC. I'm a founder operator myself. Did a number of exciting years at American Express and Verizon, as well as a few startups. Been angel investing since about 2012. Not your typical VC profile, but great to be a part of this discussion.
All right, Bill.
You're a great VC profile, because we like VCs that had operating background. That's really important. I started Voyager Capital about 25 years ago, and we're based up in Seattle. We invest in 3 geographies, what we call Cascadia, which includes Western Canada, Alberta, BC, Washington, and Oregon. And we're focused, similar to Jenn's firm, we look at early stage opportunities in that region, mostly leading those seed rounds. And we typically take a board seat, so we're very active with the companies, trying to help them with go-to-market, help them with their corporate connections, and also help scale their teams. So a lot of the entrepreneurs we see up in the Northwest tend to come out of product backgrounds and or engineering backgrounds, and they oftentimes need a lot of help in that early market, and we've spent a lot of time with them on that.
And really appreciate Quinn being here as well. He represents Qualcomm and their corporate venture capital group. And much like we heard yesterday from Adam from the Jacobs family, they've been investing as a corporation, as a family, as a group, in the community, in technologies. And obviously they were one of the very early, very progressive groups getting out there and having an investment arm as a part of their effort to commercialize their technology and build the ecosystem around the core technology to be able to help that and complement that. So Quinn, I'd love for you to share a little bit about kind of your background and the journey along the way here, and what your guys' current focus areas are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Quinn Li. I head up Qualcomm Ventures. So I joined Qualcomm and directly into the venture groups actually 20 years ago in 2005. I was an engineer by training, worked early days. Now we have 5G systems. Early days I worked on 3G technology development back in Bell Labs, actually Lucent Technologies, way back. And then decided wanted to do something different, so I went to business school, and post-business school I had a job actually at IBM, worked in product management, and then I found this opportunity in Qualcomm and joined the corporate venture group. And the group was started back in 2000, and so we've been around for 25 years. In the beginning, it was mostly investing around technologies in the wireless ecosystem, trying to promote Qualcomm's. We pioneered the CDMA technology, so it was CDMA back then it was wireless data, then it was smartphones. And today we're investing across the broad spectrum of things where we have business interest in, including automotive, IoT, AI, and data center. So today the scope for our investing is actually pretty broad across the spectrum of business we're in.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of our panelists being with us to share how VCs are driving innovation, and oftentimes to understand where the future is going to be, we want to look back. We do look for patterns, and that's one of the great things about these types of conferences, really being able to look at the data, look at the perspective from folks who've been in the industry for a long time, and then look at what their data says about where the future is going to go, and give us all an opportunity to be a part of that. So Jenn, love for you to talk a little bit about kind of your experience in terms of mobile and financial technology, computing, your experience there. And obviously we're all interested in AI and how that's going to evolve and where the opportunities to invest there. But how's kind of your experience there informed your guys' AI investment strategy?
Yeah, so we think this is an exciting time to be an investor and an entrepreneur, given where we are and sort of laying the foundational layers of the tech stack within AI. So we think about it as quite reminiscent to mobile, where the first layer of innovation was the chip layer, then the general tech kind of OS layer, then the application frameworks, tooling, APIs, all of that, and then the actual app ecosystem emerged. So we're strong believers that the value will accrue at that applied AI layer, much like it did in the mobile ecosystem, except that AI, we and many other firms believe that it'll be 10x what the SaaS ecosystem was. It's going to be, this is really once in a 4-generation technology that will probably dwarf all internet, cloud, and mobile combined. Sounds like hyperbole, but all of the patterns and trends are pointing in that direction. And at the same time, it's also particularly interesting for the sectors that we come from, so finance, marketing, media, commerce, because those sectors are not only rich with data, which is critical. So proprietary data will be critical to the application ecosystem thriving, but also there's a lot of inefficiency in those sectors. So they're data-driven, they're inefficient, and there's a high amount of human capital labor that can easily be offset so that we can allow humans to upskill and use their brains and skills at a much more productive and creative and EQ, perhaps those elements as well that an automated agentic workflow won't do. So we're strong believers in human-assisted AI will be the future in those particular 4 sectors.
And Bill, you guys have backed some of the most successful B2B companies, B2B software companies out of the Northwest here the last couple of decades. How would you say that AI, is going to drive innovation within that B2B sector? What are you guys looking out for?
Not too dissimilar to what Jen's looking at. We're looking at 3 general sectors. We invest in B2B companies, by the way. I didn't think I mentioned that earlier. And one is where we look at AI applications in particular, so AI-driven applications with some of the same characteristics that Jenn, you mentioned. We also are looking at what we describe as software-driven hardware. We think that there's going to be some really interesting innovations in robotics, off-the-shelf hardware combined with proprietary software. Everything we invest in, we're looking for proprietary software, ideally, deep technology underneath it. And then the third area that we started to explore in our last fund, we're now on our 6th fund, but in Fund 5, we looked at ag tech, and we actually believe that there's some really interesting opportunities in ag tech to not only apply sophisticated technologies like computer vision, AI, lasers, et cetera, to this particular market segment, but we also think it's a segment that for years has been a very slow adopting segment. And for a number of reasons, we now see younger farmers that are more computer literate. We're also seeing issues in getting labor. It's getting a lot worse with what Trump's doing with immigration. We're seeing a lot more pressure on profitability in farms. And so for suddenly all of these factors, this has become an interesting area, and we'll probably do about 20% of our fund in that area. We have a company called Carbon Robotics that's just really killing it, that is a laser weeder. And so it's a pole behind a tractor, and it's a combination of computer vision reading the field, AI interpreting that it's a weed and not a plant, and then the lasers zapping those weeds with about 95% accuracy. And they've gone from 2 million in revenues about 3 years ago to 140 million. So it's scaled quite nicely. Other areas that we looked at historically also, we've done a lot in video. We've actually co-invested with Qualcomm in a couple of our deals, so there's been some overlap in terms of some of your initiatives and where we have traditionally invested, but these are the new areas we're looking at. As it relates to AI, there's three layers here. There's obviously there's the discriminative AI, there's generative AI that's generating content, and now agentic AI, and we're looking at, we have investments on all three, with sort of AGI and agentic AI being the new one.
And it seems like a new buzzword every couple of weeks as
Yeah,
to the flavors as they evolve and interact and mix around. So we're definitely a dynamic time in evaluating the types of technologies out there. Quinn, talk a little bit about how you guys are a little bit different than traditional VC. How do you guys look to drive innovation as a corporate venture investor? How's it work a little bit differently? What stage, what approach? And are there any upsides or downsides as compared to traditional venture capital for entrepreneurs who may be not having thought about approaching for corporate venture capital investment?
Yeah, so I would say for corporate venture firms, we kind of have this dual mandate. Because venture capital is not the core business of the company, we need to deliver both on the financial return because we're deploying capital, as well as the strategic return to the corporation, right? So I would say some of the differences between us and the traditional financial venture firm is we focus on areas that are relevant and strategic to Qualcomm. So things that are not relevant to Qualcomm, we would not invest in. And then the other areas, we are a little bit flexible in terms of stage we can invest in. We just need to find the right companies. Our check size could be a little bit flexible. So we can go anywhere from seed stages to growth stage companies, check size anywhere from $1 to $10 million. As long as we find the right company that we can work with, partner with, and that's one of the key criteria when we look at investment. And then the third thing is we do have longer time horizon when we looked at investment. One of the companies went public 2 weeks ago in New York was an investment we made 13 years ago.
Wow.
So a long time, the company's gone through several pivots, if you will, but they've succeeded. It's a company called Mountain Digital. They're in the advertising space, but initially they started with mobile advertising. Then they moved into now TV performance advertising. So I would say longer time horizon, very focused on areas that's relevant for us, and a little bit flexible in terms of check size, ownership.
Fantastic. We've seen obviously the boom and bust cycles over the years, and it goes from being frothy to being difficult. I think I saw the statistics a couple weeks ago saying the gap between seed to graduating to Series A is as big as it's ever been. So, Bill, you've been through a few of these ups and down cycles. So you want to share a little bit on kind of the state of the market today, and what does it take to get from seed to Series A, and kind of how to think about that capital planning? What should entrepreneurs do?
Well, it kind of depends on the stage. How many entrepreneurs do we have in the audience? I'm just curious, just so we know. Wow, this is a big group. Okay. We have to make sure we allow for some question time. It depends on what series you're raising. So obviously the pre-seed series is sort of all being funded today by safe notes. So like 90% of those rounds, which tend to be $2 to $3, $4 million rounds, are safe notes. And that's usually you have an idea, you want to get it off the ground. The next stage is the seed stage, and that typically, the average valuation in Q1 was 16 million pre-money. Average size deals about 4 million. And this typically is a stage where you're going to market. So you're raising money at this stage to take that product to market. You usually have prototypes ready, demonstrable, maybe some early customers. And then the tough stage right now is this transition from seed to A. And that is venture capital firms increasingly are being very picky about what they're funding from that seed stage to that A stage. And that's the hardest part right now in terms of transition in your venture journey. And so when you're looking at investors, one of the things that's really important is to spend time thinking about that progression of the valuation over time. And what are those milestones that you're going to have to hit to be able to get the venture capital for the next round? What happens in the Pacific Northwest, which is different than Silicon Valley, is a lot of the early stage deals, seed and pre-seed, are being funded by investors in that market, and then the California firms come in on the Series A's and B's because they can't afford with their fund sizes to write large checks into those later rounds, because the A rounds and the B rounds are anywhere between 15, 20 million and then 50 or 60 million, and those then require much larger investors. Oftentimes we will look at a corporate investor like Qualcomm where there is some strategic alignment in one of these early rounds. And we're also great to hear that unlike some CVCs, Qualcomm does multiple stages. Other CVCs only want to do, more of a proven revenue stage. And we encourage our companies to think about strategic partners, but the other thing that's really critical, also try to pair up with a strategic partner that has a professional venture group like Qualcomm does, because oftentimes, like many people went to Intel back in the days. And one of the challenges you had with Intel and their old model was that you had to have the operating person to sponsor you. And a year and a half later, the operating person disappeared, and suddenly that corporate investor wasn't around. Where if you look at Qualcomm or a couple other corporate venture arms, where they actually are investing on multiple stages, that also is really critical if you're going to add a venture, essentially a corporate partner into the model.
Thanks so much, Bill. Again, having that capital plan is essential, and talking with experienced investors. Again, we all want to help the entrepreneurs with their capital plans. We want them to be successful. But writing that check is, a few week activity, get the terms negotiated, and then we got to get to work. So, Jenn, what's been your experience in terms of driving innovation? Aside from capital, what are the other things you're seeing VCs do to drive value?
Yeah, so to the point about seed to Series A, one of the things that we do, given that we're early stage, primarily seed investors, is before we even wire the money, we actually have a workshop with the CEO founder to agree on what those potential milestones would be before we even wire the money that will allow them to predict with some relative confidence that they will go from seed to Series A within 12 to 18 months, because that's the expectation. So I think it's super important to align with your VC if you're an entrepreneur, align on timelines, general milestones, but also we dig in and say, well, given these milestones, where is it that we can leverage our expertise, sector focus, enterprise relationships, fundraising backgrounds, and really help our entrepreneurs? So we'll identify on average like one, critical thing that we can do for an entrepreneur per quarter. But certainly at that pre-check writing, we want to be super aligned. And I think where we've been most helpful has been enterprise relationships, door opening that can make or break the 0 to 1 moment for an entrepreneur. Fundraising, we like to have great relationships with upstream, downstream investors, and also talent. So the number one reason why startups fail is the wrong talent, or some would say it's not able to raise money or having the wrong team in place. And one of my partners built an incredible talent business in New York over 20 years and was really good at founder spotting and team building. And so this combination of GPs that we have is sort of unusual in that we're all 4 founder operators. We have a human capital expert, a product-led growth expert with 3 exits, and then the other partner who started a company and took it public, Millennial Media. So we've been there in the entrepreneurial shoes, and so we want to be truly helpful, unlike a lot of the "how can I be helpful" meme that goes around on X. We actually do dig in, but we're very methodical and strategic about where we can be most valuable, because we can't do everything for every entrepreneur.
Thanks so much, Jenn. And Quinn, can you talk a little bit about just seed stage, growth stage, late stage? How do you guys engage? How do you guys look to support the ventures? What can the entrepreneurs look for in terms of your guys' individual expertise, and then obviously potential corporate resources or connections or customer introductions? Do you guys have a formal program, or is it more kind of deal by deal?
Yeah. So in terms of like driving innovation, if you look at one of the functions we serve as a corporate venture group, we're trying to bring insights from a view from the outside world into the company. There's a lot of innovation happening in that. We're obviously innovating ourselves, but there's a view that our group has that's unique to what other people may be working on in the company. So we're trying to bring as much of the insight that we've seen from our marketplace, from the startups we're talking to, into the company. And the other thing we're trying to do is partnership with the startups. And that goes to your question about what value do we add to these companies. And the value we can add is a couple of folds. One is the company looking for a connection into Qualcomm. So we know who the right people to talk to, so we can bridge that gap, whether we invest or not. And then, but if you're a portfolio company of ours, then we have folks on the team who are dedicated to help some of these companies, if they need a customer introduction, for instance, and we'll reach out to the Qualcomm network trying to get that customer introduction. And a couple of examples, maybe one of the companies, early stage company that we're looking for use cases. One of the areas that we invest in a lot is edge AI. So a lot of AI happens in the cloud. But because the devices we built on all the edge of the network, smartphones, PCs, cars, we were looking for use case or application that running on the edge. So one of the companies we found was developing this next-gen office agentic AI approach to office suites, if you will. And they had this interesting technology. We worked with them to run their models, some of the models locally on an AI PC. So our CEO actually talked about them in Computex in the keynote as a use case of an example of applications running on this MPU that's embedded in our processor that's running the laptop. So that's some of the examples of companies that we work with, trying to help them get their brand name out, customer introductions, and so forth.
Fantastic. So we've got about 6-7 minutes left here, so we do have time for some questions. So this is your opportunity to jump up to the mic. If you do have a question, please get ready to ask it, and we'll jump into one additional question here around just, there's a lot of talk about, how do you network, how do you access venture capital investment? Let's just chat about kind of what is the best way that you like to be approached. Obviously, there's a lot of thoughts on X and online about, cold email. We certainly all get a lot of it, but if each of you could just chat a little bit, what's the best way that you see to approach venture capital in terms of building relationships and getting to a funding commitment? Go ahead, Jen.
It's sort of stating the obvious, but certainly a warm introduction is always helpful with some sort of performance element or some sort of connection in terms of credibility. But also, I think too, if an entrepreneur has done his or her homework and does a really good job of targeting the right VCs by stage, sector, interest, looking at the competitive portfolio, that means a lot to the venture capital manager who no one wants to waste their time. And I'm perplexed by the number of LinkedIn inbound that I get to ask for me to invest in their current medical device. And there's nowhere in my profile or the website that says we invest in hardware, let alone medical devices. So, being a little bit thoughtful too about who you're approaching and why, because by the way, we have to do the same. When you're raising a fund, you've got to also think carefully about who would want to invest in your thesis, your team, your stage, et cetera. So it goes both ways.
And Bill, you guys have about as deep of a deal flow network across the Northwest, the Cascadia that's out there. What's the best way for entrepreneurs to
well,
get
I would agree with Jenn, because you need a referral, whether it's an attorney, an accountant, another entrepreneur, a board member, whatever that referral source is, that will talk to you, and it has to be relevant. I would encourage entrepreneurs to use ChatGPT and use AI to go search for their firms, because you can actually by putting the right parameters in, you can actually find the right firms, the right stage. And the biggest challenge is you get a LinkedIn and it's a total mismatch. Yeah. And you don't know the person. So number one, you're probably not going to respond to it. And secondly, if it is a referral and it's a mismatch, then that doesn't work very well either. What's also happening with a lot of venture capital firms is we are also using AI to go generate deal flow. And so increasingly, we're seeing either homegrown or off-the-shelf applications to help us find deals and do that outreach without having to use humans to do it.
Okay. Good, Quinn?
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. I would say referral from a trusted source. So if a referral came from Jenn or Bill, we certainly would say, definitely a company we would spend time, or at least have a call with. And the other thing is, like, entrepreneur can look at our website, look at the companies we've invested in, and we have outlined areas of interest for us. And that's the easy way just to say, okay, is this a fit, any of these areas we're targeting? If it's not a fit, then it's probably, not the best use of their time.
All right, fantastic. Let's go to Cameron with our first question.
Hi, this is an interesting panel because all three of you say that you have an operational background, and I guess I always try to learn something new. For your background, I had 10 companies before I had a $350 million venture capital fund, and I found out that because I had 3 unicorn IPOs, I thought I knew better than the founders. And it was really tough to be in the meetings and see somebody comes and I know better than him, and I know he's saying something or she's saying something that doesn't make sense, and hold back, and not being able to control myself. My first and second funds were disasters. Few VCs are willing to talk about that. But finally, my third one, I refused to be chairman of any company. I just said, hey, I'm a pure investor. I'm not going to do these things. I'm going to shut up, or you guys have to figure it out. But I just was wondering, for me, my learning, did you guys have any of those issues that you sit in front of something with your operating background, you say, this is not going to work out, this is not there yet, it is your portfolio? How do you handle that?
I think it's a really great point and question. It's very self-aware. We do have to hold ourselves back at times because we obviously are investing early. We're really betting on the grit, hence the name of our fund, the grit of a founder, right? The power of passion and perseverance. And while we do have operating experiences and we can offer advice, it doesn't mean they have to take it. And a great entrepreneur will know to listen, but then filter which advice really does make sense and why. But we do look at each other and say, okay, let's hold back. We're not running this company, and try to walk that fine line of being helpful, but not set their strategy for them.
On my third fund, I had a person sitting next to me, kick me under the table and say, shut up, just don't do it.
Well, I used to help entrepreneurs fundraise before we started our fund, and we had that routine. Basically, if the entrepreneur was pitching wrong, we'd kick him under the table or her under the table, and unfortunately, occasionally they would jump like that. That was not a good sign. I would just add one thing, which is over time, having been on 20 plus boards, you get pattern recognition, and you get it from some of the operational background you had, but also just seeing these patterns in companies. And when the vice president of sales says, oh, I can't get any sales done because I have no leads, and the marketing person says, well, sales doesn't convert leads, you probably realize you have to cut both of them. So these are the kind of patterns that you kind of have to rely on. And we're not always right, but sometimes we are.
Open and honest, that's certainly the best policy, to give that great feedback. And really appreciate our panel. A round of applause here for Bill and for Quinn and for Jenn. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but please do come see us at the break, at the lunch, and at the receptions, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody. Good luck on your entrepreneurial journeys, and thank you all.